Now it's time for us to take a look at news stories making headlines from across the globe. But of course, we always begin here at home. As the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, has called on the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Wike, to immediately resign and face his quote-unquote obsession with the politics of Rivers State. Bashiru was reacting to a reported tirade against him by the FCT minister following his position that all members of the party must accord any sitting governor his due respect and that governors remain the leaders of the party in their states. The APC secretary said it is shocking that this should elicit the response from the FCT minister. He described as a cheap blackmail Wike's reference to a certain 600 billion naira largesse in River State for which he, Bashiru, and other APC leaders are allegedly scrambling. Bashiru said Wike is not a member of the APC and so lacks the locus to dabble into the affairs of the party. He asserted that his position on the affairs of River State cannot be an undue interference in the affairs of Rivers State. However, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Wike, has warned the APC National Secretary, that's Senator Ajibola Bashiru, to stay out of Rivers State politics, saying the state is a no-go area for political interference. Speaking during his thank you visit to Oyibo LGA, Wike cautioned that Rivers' support for President Bola Tinubu should not be taken for granted, warning that anyone who meddles in the state's affairs should be ready to face the consequences.
Let me warn those who come to Rivers State because you have heard about 600 billion. You come here, you connect, and you open your mouth, you talk anyhow. I want to say it. You know, when you are doing something for the interest of everybody, some people will come out to make sure those things don't work. I say it here. Victor, tell the brother, I want to say to you, take this message, tell your national secretary, leave Rivers State alone. Leave Rivers State alone. Go and ask those who have tried it before. Go and ask those who have tried it before. Don't take our support from Mr. President for granted. You have to be careful the statement you make. You have to be careful. Today, you are enjoying in Osun. You don't know those who did the work. You are opening your mouth to talk about Rivers State. Anything you see, take it. Anything you see, what? Agreement is agreement.
All right, that's the Minister of the FCT there, flanked by his son. On to other news, as President Bola Tinubu has in two separate letters written to the Senate seeking confirmation of 21 nominees for the boards of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, that's NMDPRA, and the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, that's NUPRC. In the first letter, President Tinubu nominated Senator Magnus Abe to serve as chairman of NUPRC board. Abe, who represented Rivers Southeast in the Senate for 2 terms, is a former NNPC board member and current chairman of the National Agency of the Great Green Wall. Other nominees for the NUPRC board are Engineer Paul Yaro Jezi, a former Trade Union Congress chairman in Kaduna, and Sunday Babalola, a former deputy director of the Department of Petroleum Resources, which was abolished by the PIA in 2021. Both men will serve as non-executive commissioners. President Tinubu also nominated 6 executive commissioners to the board. In his second letter, Tinubu nominated Adegbite Ebiowe Adeniji, a lawyer, as chairman of the NMDPRA board. Adeniji has over 30 years of experience in energy and natural resources issues. He was a special technical advisor to the Minister of State for Petroleum on upstream and gas until 2018. President Tinubu also nominated 6 non-executive members. Now, the president urged the Senate to approve the nominees expeditiously. The requests followed the recent appointment of chief executive officers for the two regulatory agencies. The Senate confirmed Orishameyiwa Eyeshon as the chief executive officer of the NUPRC and engineer Saidu Aliu Mohammed as CEO of NMDPRA. Tinubu charged all the appointees and nominees to discharge their duties and responsibilities professionally as regulators of the oil and gas sectors. Now, on to the campaign trail, as the Independent National Electoral Commission says it has resumed the nationwide continuous voter registration exercise, which marks the beginning of the second phase of the process. The resumption follows the conclusion of the first phase of the CVR, which officially ended on December 10, 2025. INEC had earlier launched online pre-registration for the exercise on August 18, 2025, before rolling out physical registration at designated centers across the country on August 25th. In a statement issued in December, the Commission disclosed that a total of 9,891,801 Nigerians initiated the online pre-registration process during the first phase of the exercise. Now to issues surrounding insecurity. No fewer than 9 soldiers were killed yesterday and several others injured when their convoy hit a landmine and came under fire from terrorists in Borno State. The attack took place on Sunday near Bindundul village, some 12 miles from Karito, an area where Daesh-affiliated Islamic State West Africa Province ISWAP fighters were said to operate freely and often set up checkpoints. According to 2 security sources from the Damasak Brigade, the terrorists planted a mine that our soldiers stepped on. Unfortunately, about 9 soldiers died instantly, while 5 others were seriously injured. That's a direct quote. A member of the Civilian Joint Task Force involved in the rescue operation, Abakakatuja, added that an armored vehicle was destroyed when the mine detonated, followed by sporadic gunfire from militants. Well, those are the top stories today. We are looking at all things from the road to elections heating up, both politically and in terms of our election infrastructure, INEC, developments in Rivers State, insecurity, tragic news of our men who lost their lives yesterday, as well as, of course, the economy with NUPRC and NMDPRA boards.
Okay, at first I'd like to pay tribute to our dear troops that lost their life in active service. The death of every man diminishes all of us. But these are patriots. These are those that keep putting their life on the line to fight for all of us. They could have been with their families celebrating the festivities of the new year, but out there on a mission to keep Nigeria sovereign and safe, they pay the supreme price with their lives, and their sacrifices will never be forgotten. But I also quickly want to add another story that hurts my heart, and it's based on a reporting by Daily Trust about what happened in Niger yesterday. You've not heard the end of it. The president did say, let's go after those that perpetrated that heinous act, what happened in Niger. Stories are beginning to emerge that the death toll was not even 30, it was more than 30. Some are saying 45, some are saying 60. But the shocking thing for me that hurts me the most is the fact that the kids that were just rescued from Papiri in Niger State, some of them were reabducted in that kidnapping. Because it was not only killings that happened, the terrorists also abducted people in Niger. So just imagine the trauma of a kid that had just faced the trauma of being in the bush, abducted. Now that kid been reabducted in the space of a month and a half. 2 times, insecurity struck. They went through the ordeal of negotiating their release. Now the newspaper Daily Trust claimed they've been reabducted. This is our country for you. This is the sad reality. I don't want to go the first so Nigerian happened, but it happens. When we say Nigeria happens, because they are in Nigeria and there's a level of insecurity. When good things also happen, we can also say Nigeria happened. There are no biggies about that. But that's the sad reality of the insecurity we are fighting. And that's why it's not just President Tinubu saying, go fight them away in France, while he's in France. It's about him doing something about this insecurity. It's lasted for too long. As regards Wike, I see the reason for his reaction. Give it to President Tinubu. That man is a master strategist. Like I was saying the other day when Mr. Tonya Cole was here, I said the reason why when Mr. Wike wanted to impeach Fubara, President Tinubu intervened and probably gave him a leeway was so that he will have options. And his options have come up. So now, Fubara has joined the APC. The APC top apparatchik have closed rank with him. You can see the chairman of the party saying the other day that he's our man. Then Bolaji Bashir is saying, Wike, you're not even a member of the APC. And you see, that's why politicians should be careful. When Wike was going at people in his own party, did he forget that at some point in the APC, they would tell him you're not a member of the APC because Fubara has joined the APC. And President Tinubu has played him out in the game. Guess what? Unknowingly, after he got the Supreme Court ruling that they did the local government elections again last year, he went to put most of the local government chairmen as APC members. He ensured they got in. The State House of Assembly defected to APC. The governor, APC. Wike, PDP. It's so easy to scheme him out. And that's why the likes of Ajibola Bashir can challenge him and say, you are not in the party, you don't have a right to tell us what you will do in the party. Yes, Wike can say, oh, you can't tell me that. Don't put your mouth in reverse politics. Say all sorts. But President Tinubu has strategically schemed it out. That's why they call him the Jagaban. I don't agree with President Tinubu on many things, but on this, he has shown he's the political Jagaban. He has schemed him out. So Wike can go ahead with his local government home. But what Wike forgets is, yes, you will say the local government chairmen they are loyal to you, right? But they are in the APC. Most of them, I think save for one or two that PDP won. Majority of them are in the APC. So it's been schemed out. President Tinubu choose to work with Fubara, and that's why Bashir said that he could resign. So the question is, will Wike now want to fight back and go against the grain and fight the federal might? As in he wants to get a candidate to challenge Fubara? It might be a game up for him. This might be the beginning of the end of this fight. On this, like they say on the streets, President Tinubu 200, Wike 0.
Okay, very quickly, let me start with the boards. Now, what the law, the enabling law, setting up either the UPRC or the NMDPRA says is that there shall be a board. Now, it has taken President Bola Ahmed Tinubu almost how many years now since he assumed office in 2023 to now set up a board. Well, as they say, better late than never, because he has now finally, fulfilled that obligation, that legal obligation that there must be a board. Shortly after changing the leadership of both the NUPRC and the NMDPRA. Now, two things. The NUPRC, it's a fairly straightforward assignment. What do? They oversee the upstream sector, oversee the exploration activities upstream, and then, of course, licensing rounds, bid rounds, and all of that. So the board has a responsibility to make sure that there is transparency in that regard and that due processes followed and that whatever process that they have to deal with is not politicized because these are regulators, as it were. So and you have Magnus Abe, Senator Magnus Abe, as the chairman of that board of the NUPRC. Now, in a sense, you may say in terms of extraction, it looks good for government to have chosen somebody from Ogoniland, or if you like, from Rivers State. And then, of course, he also has experience. He had been on the board of the NMPC previously. So it looks like, the issues are quite familiar to him. Now, as for the NMDPRA, there's a lot of more work there because the NMDPRA that is responsible for the midstream and the downstream will be dealing with refining. We'll be dealing with storage. We'll be dealing with distribution. We'll be dealing with quality, ensuring that the quality of products is in order and reliable and for the benefit of Nigeria. So they have, even a lot more rigorous work to do. Now take the refineries. The only refinery that is working, that is so visible in Nigeria today is the Dangote refinery. You recall that when the Dangote refinery had issues with the former head of that body, Farouk Ahmed. The issue was that even the NMDPRA did not have its own laboratory. If it wants to test quality, if it wants to establish standards and set standards, it will, ordinarily outsource that to some other bodies. The first task of this new board that is led by Mr. Adeniji is simply to make sure that that body, that NMDPRA, at least sets up a laboratory that can be, relied upon. And two, that the NMDPRA does not get involved in this old practice of giving approvals for importation. The business should be how to grow activities in the midstream and the downstream. And then as for the refineries, there is an opinion abroad that these refineries that are comatose, that are just a waste on the resources of Nigeria, should be sold, even if it is a scrap or whatever, or something should be done about them. That would be within the purview also of the NMDPRA board. And then, of course, to ensure accountability, to ensure transparency. Now, incidentally, the chairman of that board, Mr. Adeniji, he has been in oil and gas. I think he was involved in helping to fine-tune the petroleum oil sector reform, particularly in the area of gas. So he's familiar with the subject. It's not as if, he's a tyro being given, an assignment that he's not familiar with. So if you look at the other board members too, some of them have been in NNPC or they've served on the board before under President Buhari. So there's also a sense of continuity. And now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has added also new hands. But the retest will be in what they are able to do and how productive and how effective they are as regulators, not people trying to serve political interests, but ensuring integrity, transparency, and accountability. So I think the appointment of the board members is welcome, and we hope that they'll get expeditious approval from the Senate as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has requested. Now, quickly to Rivers State. Now, here's some wicked place politics for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. When he was speaking at Uyibu local government area yesterday, in the course of what he calls visit to Rivers State, he told the people, while concluding, that he was there to campaign for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But while he's playing politics for President Tinubu, it is obvious that some members of the APC, the leadership of the APC, are not happy with his kind of politics. Now, the reasons are not far to seek. Perhaps his style, perhaps his almost deliberate alienation of many constituencies that could also have been very useful to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, in less than 1 week, the chairman of the APC, Yitwada Nentawe, has had to remind Nyesom Wike that he's not the leader of any party in Rivers State. That is the governor of the state, Sim Fubara, who is now known as 001. That is the leader of the APC in Rivers State, and that is not answerable to people who are outside the party. Nentawe even rubbed it in and said, as far as they are concerned, Wike is a member of the PDP. Now, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, who is the national secretary of the party, also more or less rubbed it in and said the man that they recognize in the APC is Sim Fubara. And now Bashiru went a step further and said if Wike is more concerned about politics in Rivers, he should resign his appointment at the federal level and go and face Rivers politics. So it's a kind of rejection by some of the principal members of the APC itself. So while he may be on good terms with President Tinubu, some people clearly oppose him, even within the APC that he says is helping. And this will have implications for, politics in Rivers State particularly. But Wike says he's the one in charge of Rivers, that Rivers is a no-go area, that Bashiru will burn his hands, that in fact he should go and ask from people who try to intervene in Rivers before and what happened to them, more or less making himself, in a grandiloquent manner, the emperor of Rivers State, to a position to which nobody has either appointed him or anointed him. But, politicians also learn their lessons. It may well happen that the same President Tinubu that he says he will report Bashiru to and the Minister of Blue Economy may have their own ideas in terms of the utility value of Wike himself, either as a politician or as somebody campaigning for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I've made this point before, so I repeat it again. Now, INEC, the voter registration, it's called a continuous voter registration exercise. They've completed the first phase and were able to register physically over 2 million people, another over 1 million on online, online registration. And now what they want to do is the second phase. Now the second phase means, okay, more voters who have not been captured would have to get onto the register. The only two areas that have been suspended, Anambra and the Federal Capital Territory, where there are ongoing political activities, electoral activities at the moment. So later, Anambra and FCT will also be captured. The whole idea is to ensure that anybody who is of voting age, who is eligible to vote, is not excluded. Since 2023, when we had the last general elections, there have been more people who have attained the age of 18, which is the voting age in Nigeria. Now, all those persons, the purpose of the law is to make sure that they are also included and they are also allowed to exercise their right of franchise. And so it's just a routine exercise. But what is more important is that these voters that have been registered, that have been put into the pool, the long-term objective is to make sure that the election or the elections that INEC will conduct in 2027 will be such elections that will allow the people the right to choose freely and fairly, and that the enabling environment is provided to make sure that this is a reality when we go to the polls.
Absolutely. I think that's the most apt way to put our outlook on this ongoing exercise of voter registration that has now gone into its second phase. INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity, Victoria Etamesi, was on a rise yesterday. You spoke about the somewhat low numbers so far and expressed that during the second phase, what they're going to do is they're going to create a mobile registration system because many people are saying that logistically they're struggling to come to the INEC headquarters in each local government area. So INEC will be going from ward to ward with a mobile registration system to try and capture as many people as possible. This is also in light of a report done by Yaga Africa, which is a national voter intention survey that says that 77% of voters actually have the intention of voting. However, only 45 have confidence in INEC. So there's more work that needs to be done in the confidence building of INEC and the electoral process between now and the election, and a lot of focus needs to be placed on that. But let's look at some of the bigger issues of the day. Let's go to politics in Rivers State that I think are a microcosm of what we are seeing on a national level and what was the inevitable outcome of Machiavellian politics at play. This is what happened when we choose Machiavellian politics over ideology. We saw this wave of governors defecting from PDP to the APC. We now hear that NNPP will also defect and join the APC. And one key thing that many people fail to acknowledge is that this will create resentment within the APC. I remember in November last year at the APC stakeholders meeting for Lagos, former governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola, has said, what is the state of APC's reward system? The internal reward system. Meaning, if you are a member of APC, a stalwart of APC, you have been a stakeholder and you have been waiting for your turn. You have been part of the structures. What happens when that whole system is upended because somebody has come in from outside the party and you are now told that that person owns the structure? Because the debate continues. As much as the APC has reasserted that the leader of the state, the governor, the incumbent, becomes the leader of the state, what happens to those who have earned their stripes in the state? The case of Rivers State is a little bit different because it's almost a case of triple wahala, not even double wahala, because you have Nyesom Wike and those loyal to him, whether they be in PDP or APC. You now have Governor Siminalayi Fubara, who is now an APC governor, and the structures that he has, which are also factionalized. Let's not forget that there are still long-time loyalists of the APC who have been playing opposition politics in that party, who have now also been alienated. So you have all these three groups who are wrangling for control. And what is the big issue? The big issue here is that we're counting down to March, where the party convention will happen. Who will control the delegates? Because we know that the delegates at the primaries are hotcakes. It's a big issue. And he who has control over the delegates is he who really is the 001 of the state, if we are to put it in that context. So we are now going to see a heating up of these wranglings. As much as Rivers State, because of the personalities involved, is a lot more explosive, we can see it brewing in other states. Can we really say that Delta State has been able to reconcile and harmonize? Remember, there was the rift between Oborowori and Omoagege, as much as they then accepted that governor becomes the leader of the party. Is Is it resolved? Is there harmony? You go to Enugu State. Is there harmony? Are they happy that someone was brought in after all the work they've been doing as an opposition party in that state? Look at Plateau State, where as much as Senator Lalong says that he hands over to Caleb Mufwang to be the leader of the party, are the structures of the APC genuinely happy that they now have to submit themselves to people who have not earned those so-called structures, if I may put it in that sense? So now the question is power and control of the party earned, or is it transferred? And this is a very important detail, because it means that when the primaries happen, when the convention happens, we might find that there are several individuals who will be disgruntled, who will be shortchanged, and who will walk away with resentment. And that's where the politics will really begin. What will happen to those who feel entitled, who feel that they should be beneficiaries of the APC reward system over a long period of time, who are now feeling that they're being shortchanged by all these people who are coming from left, right, and center simply because of incumbency? It negates the effort and investment that they've made into the party. So as much as this is playing out in River State, what I think we're seeing from the leadership of the APC is we're finally seeing an explosion of that frustration that has been brewing, because their investment has been made in the party. They've sowed their seeds in various places, and those seeds may not come to pass because people have been brought from outside to play the politics of the 2027 election. I close with the issues of insecurity around the state, which Rufai made a very valid point. In Niger State, if you look at what happened in Niger State, the attack was right next to Papiri village. Now, we thought that after such a heinous attack happened and after the president has issued marching orders, that there would be security within that area. However, they say that that attack went on for 2 hours. And there was no resistance whatsoever. There was no intervention. In Borno State, we're now seeing that terrorists are now setting traps for our troops. Now, what is the common denominator here? The common denominator here is that we're seeing the movement of terrorists as they're escaping the places that they feel are hotspots, the places that they feel that they're under attack. They're now moving themselves to new territories. In Borno State, they're laying landmines along their path. We've reached a new level of this war, and I do hope that the commander-in-chief will be on ground, will put his own boots on ground very soon.